Hey guys, so chapter 1002 of One Piece entitled Emperors versus the New Generation just came out. And we're sticking on the roof for this one. It's an entirely action chapter, continuing with the battle of, as you know, the title may suggest, the Emperors versus the Worst Generation. Um, which is kind of a surprise. I'm not complaining, but I kind of assumed that by now we would probably be going back down to see what was happening elsewhere in Onigashima. Um, like I don't know, we haven't seen Carrot and Wanda fighting Perospero for what feels like forever. I feel like that matchup was made like 5 or 6 chapters ago at this point, and we haven't seen anything from that. Um, but yeah, another great action chapter. I would say in terms of action, probably even better than last chapter. So that makes like a solid 2.5 chapters straight of just this fight, because obviously chapter 1000, it started about halfway through the chapter. Um, Chapter 1001 was all action, and now chapter 1002 again is all action. But the very first thing that happens, Kaido breaks out the wind scythes again, as he did against Okiku and all the other scabbards earlier, back in, I don't know, 995 maybe. And unlike the scabbards that seem to kind of just be blindly blocking against it, these guys seem a little bit more confident when it comes to deflecting this attack, or at least not taking damage from it. Kid's like mech thing, one of its hands get like cut in half, but he basically says, it's made of junk, and basically due to his power, he can just remake it instantly anyway, so it's no big deal. And after that, we get a very a small panel where, well, it's 3 panels where Zoro is blocking one of the wind scythes very casually, and one of the panels is actually probably one of my favorite panels of the chapter, even though it's kind of small, which is just kind of a shaded Zoro face glaring towards Kaido, which, it's the simple things that really hit me. But also Luffy, we see him dodging and weaving past these scythes closer and closer to Kaido in his bound man form. Finally getting up and close in Kaido's face, in which he uses a new technique, kind of. He uses Kong Rifle, which I believe we have not seen before, but obviously that's just the Gear 4th elevation of his normal Gomu Gomu no rifle. I don't think that's anything crazy there, but I think it still technically constitutes a new move. So yeah, socks Kaido right in the face. He goes flying backwards. And then Kid comes running up in one of the most bizarre scenes ever when you lay it out. But basically, he grabs Kaido's head and suplexes it into the ground, which, like I read this through like 2 or 3 times just to get, some better thoughts on it before, reviewing it. And the first time I was just like, oh, this is normal. But on my second and third time, I was really thinking about it. And, this is a, like, mech suplexing a dragon. And I kind of just was like, oh, yeah, normal action here. Nothing out of the ordinary, which I thought was kind of funny in retrospect. But yeah, we get that. And directly after, we get Law. Law uses Gamma Knife on Kaido. And something really interesting he says is that he's never dissected a dragon before, but I reckon the heart is around here, and then, uses Gamma Knife. And that makes me think that maybe the reason Kaido is, choosing to go into his dragon form, which we've seen is he is actually kind of weaker than his base form or his Oni form. He, like, when he gets serious, he usually turns back into normal Kaido. We saw it with his fight against Luffy. We saw that in his fight against the Scabbards. So I imagine the only reason he has to be as big as Harg as he is in his dragon form is because it makes it hard to, estimate where the vital spots would be, because, other than the head, you're just one big serpent thing. So maybe that's part of the strategy. I don't know. But yeah, Law uses the Gamma Knife, which I was expecting last chapter, because in last chapter again he said that I will use a surgical death to damage you from the insides, or surgical techniques that damage you from the insides. Which in my mind immediately went to Gamma Knife because that's pretty much exactly how he described it back when he fought Doflamingo. But then proceeded to use Tax last chapter to just throw rocks at him, which is interesting. So it's nice to see him use that there. And when Kaido is flying away after being hit by that attack, he says, "You can counter my durability." So I imagine what he's implying there is that all of the attacks that just got hit, including the suplex and Gamma Knife, and obviously Luffy's Kong rifle, that those all did damage. So, I mean, that would imply that Luffy is actively using Ryuo, or Advanced Armament Haki, even when he isn't actively saying it. Because obviously with the Red Rock technique, the fact that that's a new technique, we kind of just assumed that he was using Ryuo with that. But this would imply that, yes, he's using it pretty much with all of his attacks, just in general. He doesn't have to, explicitly state it or, make a whole new attack when he's using Advanced Armament Haki. And also, the suplex, despite it not looking like it, perhaps it does actually affect him to some degree. But then we get Killer. It does something that I can't really describe very well. He grabs onto Kaido and scales him with his little things, and then uses a technique called Sonic Scythe. And what it looks like visually is that, before he says that, he has a little monologue that says, "It looks like I can slice you up from the inside." And then in the next panel, his blades extend to super long enough to completely sever through Kaido. But they also don't, if that makes sense. They're poking through Kaido. But the way they're drawn, it looks like they're not real, or they're some sort of projections, but they're also actually doing damage. I'm very confused as to what's going on here. I don't know if it'll be offering an explanation, or maybe the anime will make it more clear visually, but it looks like, I guess, Killer has some sort of technique that can damage him from the inside, which I guess is refreshing to know. But yeah, I honestly have no idea what this technique exactly is. But yeah, no more to say on that then, obviously. Other than right after landing that attack, Killer gets bodied by Zeus, or Big Mom using Zeus, using a technique called Indra, which I believe is a lightning deity of some sort. I could be wrong. Similar to how all of what's his name, Enel's techniques were based off of lightning deities. So yeah, using a technique called Indra, knocks Killer off of Kaido, and then as Killer's falling, Kaido pretty much tries to eat him, pretty much, but Luffy uses Rhino Schneider and knocks him out of the way. At which point, Kaido turns around, and I'm going through this kind of fast because, I mean, really, again, this is all action. There's really not much to commentate on this other than, what's happening. There's really no deeper meaning to look into it with. So, Kaido turns around, uses a Boro Breath, at which point, Zoro asks Law for a boost, and it's kind of continuing the gag from the last chapter or two, in which he has to follow his orders, and he's obviously not happy with that because it makes him look like a subordinate or a babysitter. But in any case, he does zap Zoro up, at which point he cuts the Boro Breath in half to save Luffy, just like we saw Kinemon do earlier in the fight with the Scabbards. And then he prepares a new attack, One Sword Style Blaze, or Flying Dragon Blaze, which I believe is a new technique. Yeah, it definitely is. I don't think we've seen this before. It's like I said, One Sword Style. He's pretty much just using one sword for an overhead slice going downward towards Kaido. And what's really interesting about this particular attack is that Big Mom is actually afraid of it, when she sees it about to be used, she tells Kaido to dodge and says that that's not your average sword. And Kaido obviously realizes the same thing because Zoro is using Enma. In last chapter, he said, after pretty much failing to damage Kaido with that brief attack he got on it with Killer, he said, "Oh, I need to release more of Enma's power if I'm gonna be able to damage him." And he fulfills that promise very much in this chapter, as we see, the aura basically spilling off of the sword, and he proceeds to launch the attack, one sword style, Flying Dragon Blaze, which cuts a horn off of Onigashima, way in the distance. So yeah, that is a pretty devastating attack. But it looks like one that definitely takes it out of Zoro, as we see him like wheezing as he falls back toward the ground. So I don't expect to see like that level of power with all of his attacks necessarily, but it's definitely nice to see that he has that level of power available to him. And like I said, Kaido recognizes that Odin's aura is coming from the sword, and he's probably going to put two and two together that is probably Enma very soon, or if he is not already. And as he's falling, he gets hit by Big Mom's technique again, much like Killer did. This might be part of a different technique, because in the next panel she uses a different technique called the Heavenly Dominion, Shiva's Wrath, another technique that utilizes lightning, but this time it's more so a barrage of lightning, and also the lightning itself seems to have souls, whether it's entirely new soul creatures that she created, or each one's just like a fraction of Zeus's soul, because we see one heading toward Kid, and he blocks it with the arm of the thing, and it just kind of goes around, and he gets him from the side with a big, grin on the ball of lightning, I guess, for a lack of better way to describe it. But we get a moment that's very reminiscent of Skypiea, because we see Luffy get hit by it a few panels earlier, but he's still, up there right next to Big Mom, and she's like, "Oh, why didn't you get fried by the lightning?" And he says, "Because I made of rubber." And I hadn't actually realized this until now, but it's been like forever since we heard Luffy say his trademark, "Because I'm made of rubber." Back in East Blue, we used to hear that all the time, obviously, because devil fruits were so rare in the East Blue, or supposedly, much to the point that most people regarded them as a myth. So he had to say, "Oh, I made a rubber," basically every time he busted out like crazy Gomu Gomu no techniques. And I think that continued a bit into the like early Grand Line, possibly into Skypiea. But speaking of Skypiea, this obviously mirrors what happened with Enel. And Big Mom, even after he says that, has sort of a similar face. It's a very small panel. It's nothing like the full page shocked face that Enel had, that gets, cut and pasted onto SpongeBob every now and then, back when Luffy first tanked one of Enel's attacks. But it's definitely similar, and it's definitely probably meant to be a callback to that. But after that, he's having this interaction, Kaido attacks him from the side with another blast breath. And obviously Zoro is not here to cut this one, but we get a similar interaction between Kaido and Luffy, in which the fire seems to have little to no effect, and Kaido says, "Well, the fire doesn't affect you either. Is this some sort of trick with rubber also?" And Luffy says, "Nope, it's just guts," and proceeds to Kong Gatling Kaido, which is the last panel of the chapter. And like I said, it goes very fast because it is very much all action. Even last chapter we had a bit of comedy mixed in, but this much seemed very much a higher proportion of action than the last one was. So yeah, A good chapter all around, a lot of great action. I think Zoro was definitely the highlight of this chapter for me between that attack and that panel early on. But Luffy also had some great moments. And I guess I should mention, I guess technically Kong, like I said with Kong Rifle, Kong Gatling, I think we technically have not seen before. But it obviously is just an elevation of his, normal techniques. And what I found strange about that is that I always, considered that Organ Gun would just be the natural progression of Gatling in the Gear 4th form. But no, it's something entirely separate. And so he can still use Gatling in the Gear 4th. But yeah, pretty fast chapter, but definitely very great. I thought we would probably be stepping back from the action this chapter, but it's still going. And I expect that maybe Act 3 will be ending very soon, if not next chapter, in the next couple of chapters. Obviously, maybe not. That's really just speculation, but this is supposed to be a 5-act structure. Joe Hakyu. But obviously, it's not necessarily required for Oda to follow that. But it very much seems like I don't see why he would stray away from that in a thing that's supposedly modeled after Kabuki play. And the fourth act is characterized by battles. The third act, which we're currently in, is characterized by great tragedy, which probably would have been the Odin flashback if there isn't any great moment of tragedy that we haven't got yet, that is. But yeah, so obviously the matches have been set in the lower floors of Onigashima between all the Straw Hats and the Toby Robo. And now we're starting to see the start of the fight with the Emperors in the Merge Generation. So if, he fulfills the promise of the fourth act being that of battles, then I expect Act 4 to be starting very soon. And also, obviously with that Act 3 ending very soon. But with that, I really have nothing else to say. So see ya.